I'm Skip.
And I'm Scott.
And today we're talking about the best Christmas present you could buy if that present was video games and roguelikes. Right? That's today?
You buy for the roguelike fan in your life?
Even if that roguelike fan is you.
9 times out of 10. I mean, friends do buy games for each other, Skip.
It's true.
That
is
is
true.
The older I get and the more I want to share game experiences, or maybe not even multiplayer games, but share daily run competitions, or even just share a shared experience, like watching a movie so you can talk about it.
Often you've got that friend who asks you what types of games you play. You list all of them and they go, I've heard of none of them.
Right.
Is that like Call of Duty?
Right.
And but they are intrigued by all these games you spend your time playing.
Are you not playing Cyberpunk 2077 or whatever it is?
I really considered getting it, but like all AAA games, I came to, you know what? Let's wait. Let's see how it actually is.
Ooh.
And maybe a year from now when it's on discount, I'll buy it.
Skip, were you No Man's Skied as a young adult?
No, I was not. I was not.
I
missed out on that
No
one.
Man's Skied.
Ooh, you were. Yeah. Were you Fallout 76'd?
No.
Okay.
I reached peak Fallout New Vegas. Loved that. Kind of got my feel. Did all my endings there, and was like, you know what? I know they're not going to do anything better than this. I'll read reviews. I'll let the curators do their job. Who's got the time?
And that's especially when it's a $60 price tag on it. I really wanna listen. But even with roguelikes, sometimes you look and you go $20, $25 for a game that there's not often a lot of press about. Sometimes good to get a different opinion to see what someone else thinks.
Well, I know this isn't on the agenda or anything, but do you have a goal in mind when you're buying a game for hours played, or some kind of a personal satisfaction for the dollar amount? Because for me, it's easy. The goal is $1 an hour. If I can get $1 an hour from an experience, then it's better than watching a movie.
You're asking this from someone whose YouTube channel is basically reviewing games. Right. So I buy them thinking I'm going to write a review on it.
Yes.
It's a little different view than the most people.
You get to write it off.
I hope that the revenue from the video will cover a portion of that game. Sometimes it does. Most times it does not.
Well, you get that. Hey, a review's forever. Until the end of the game.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but pre-review, I never had a dollar amount. Regardless of the game, if I could get 40 hours of enjoyment out of a game, regardless of price,
interesting,
I'm okay with it. And certainly I go, hey, if I got 40 hours out of a game and it cost me $10, that's really good.
Absolutely. That works on my formula as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's your $1 an hour. Yeah.
Quadruple value.
Yeah, I mean, I look at some of the games where I've got over 100 hours, and it's like, they're not always, they're often not
games,
the most
$20
expensive.
games.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you. I like looking for diamonds in the rough. I was really into AAA games in my youth, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, and I got myself a new rig so that I could play any game I want, and it turns out the games I want don't need that nice of a rig.
Well, I mean, honestly, we're towards the end of the first decade of the rise of the indie game. It really wasn't until shortly after 2010, 11, 12 that indie games really started to come into their own. And so we're still really at the beginning of indie games. If you look at when you and I were growing up, you had to buy whatever Nintendo decided was the right price for a game, or whatever Sony decided was the right price for a game, and that was it. My kids are spoiled. They get choice now, and I'm happy for them.
Do you know how many channels we had?
I had to go to my cousin's house to play his system for 2 hours, and we'd play the same game. And
when the game started bleeping and blooping at us, we were excited. When we no longer had to mail the floppy disks to each other.
Oh my gosh. So what we're doing today is we're going to be doing sort of draft style. Full disclosure, we've already drafted our games just because we wanted to not spend our time thinking about it here. Unless you want me to edit that part out. I can't. But truth, full transparency, we've already done our pre-draft.
We did the pre-draft.
But we did draft games one at a time to come up with our top 5 roguelikes we would recommend for someone that you are going to buy games for in a Christmas list. This is aimed at people who aren't familiar necessarily with, or interested, or you're trying to get them into roguelikes, maybe.
How about this? It's a gateway gift bag.
Oh, gateway gift bag. I like that. That might be the title.
Oh.
The Roguelike Gateway gift bag. I like it. Yeah. We have title. Scott was kind enough to allow me to go first with my first pick.
Yeah, I owe you money.
I think, yeah, sure, yeah, maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But because of this, I think we both knew what was going to be happening out of the gate for what's the best gateway game I could think of for roguelikes. And that, of course, was going to be Hades. We've already talked about Hades.
We talked about it. We got an episode about it. It's the only one of these games that has an episode about it.
It's
the elephant in the room.
It's been the elephant in the room because specifically there are so many people who are already discovering Hades who have never played a roguelike before and gone, are all roguelikes like this? Well, now I really kind of enjoy it. And so we're seeing a whole, hopefully, new swath of fans. Hopefully we'll encourage more developers to check out and develop games for the genre. Honestly, if someone doesn't play roguelikes, the hardest part for anyone hopping into a roguelike is the first time they die. They're either going to go, well, I'm starting over. Well, that's a waste of time, and never join it again. Mm-hmm. They have to feel invested and like their death meant something. And Hades does that very, very well.
Right.
Better than almost any game. And so that's why it had to be number 1 for me, both because I think it's one of the best games out there right now. Certainly for me, game of the year of 2020, and a great gateway game to someone you want to get into roguelikes.
Yes. To be fair, full disclosure, after a little bit of deliberation, I think we decided if there is a franchise, these would be all of the games in the franchise. Since this is the gateway game, we assume that you're going to be experiencing these games in their most recent version with the DLC.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Or it's really the spirit of the entire series of games, if it is a series of games. Because, quite frankly, if we are going back and forth, Skip, my number 1 pick is Binding of Isaac. And it's the whole dang thing. And I gotta say, Binding of Isaac, past, present, and future, is the roguelike to compare all new roguelikes to.
You're not wrong.
When you went through your list in the last podcast or the past 2 podcasts of your Berlin checklist of elements, this is the game that decided to break a couple of those key rules, do its own thing to prove that maybe just a handful of those elements can really work and capture the essence, as opposed to the complete commandments, everything written down in stone. This is the one. Hades, we are assuming, is going to bring a lot of new people in, like you said. Binding of Isaac brought us in.
It's true.
That is the game that I played when I was tired of sucking at PUBG and too annoyed with the games my friends were playing. And this was just something that I could slowly learn, slowly get clever at, get some discernment about what the items were, begin to get a little bit of subconscious reflexes about the patterns of the mobs, and all of a sudden, I'm good. And that feeling...
Before you know it, all of a sudden.
Yeah, and that feeling I captured with most of the other games on my list, that click. I think that's what you're talking about, where you were being able to understand how the game operates, the tempo, the timing, what it's wanting you to do, how it's setting up, that underlying layer. Binding of Isaac has such a long life. And no offense to you, but quite frankly, Hades and the Epitaph comes a little quick now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know how long you played.
It does, but I mean, it's
if you want to get 20 heat, if you want to get 20 heat or 30 heat,
true.
You can go ahead and keep becoming a pro Hades player, I suppose, right? And that's how all of these feel like. Binding of Isaac, there's tons of people who stream it. I feel like that's something that these great games have in common, that there's very easy to learn and almost impossible to master.
It certainly helped to break out the genre into what it is today, for sure. Mine also falls into the realm of a franchise. And it's really a combination of two games that are actually different, but one is sort of the game mashup crossover together. That would be Crypt of the Necrodancer / The Legend of Zelda Cadence of Hyrule, which is actually the entire name of that game, which is ridiculous. Two games. And I picked them with the purpose specifically adding in Cadence of Hyrule with a reason. Crypt of the Necrodancer to me is is the best traditional roguelike plus. By plus, I mean it took all of the rules of a traditional roguelike and added music. It does it so brilliantly. If you haven't even at least heard the music of the game, just listen to some of the soundtracks. It's really, really well done. It's well balanced. It's fun. There's a really active community on it as well. What I think is special when you consider to add in the Cadence of Hyrule game as well, which, for those of you who don't know, there was a Legend of Zelda, and Crypt of the Necrodancer had a baby on Switch, and it is Cadence of Hyrule, and it's the Legend of Zelda universe where you've got a mashup of so you're playing a Zelda game with the turn-based to the rhythm of the music Necrodancer game. Or some people have thought of it as that you've got a Crypt of the Necrodancer game with more of a open world storyline, Legend of Zelda on top of it. It works actually either direction, and it works as both games. I've known people who are both roguelike fans but never really Zelda fans who love the game. And I've been in the streams of some people who are like, well, I've never heard of a roguelike and I've never heard of Crypt of the Necrodancer, but I really like this game because I'm a huge Zelda fan.
Right.
And for that reason, for me, this is in my grab bag, because it's such a great way to bring in people from the Zelda franchise into the world of roguelikes and let them try it out. So this is specifically the game for that Zelda fan, the person who's wearing the Triforce t-shirt all the time. Get them this game. They're going to enjoy it, and then they'll get hooked.
Yeah, I wanted to just throw in, you said Zelda fanboys, roguelike fanboys, rhythm game fanboys I want to add in as well.
Oh, yeah.
While you would think that might be something that would exclude the other two groups or make it a barrier for entry, I'm probably above average in my appetite for a good rhythm-based game. I didn't mind Rappa Parappa, and I like my Guitar Hero and all that. But there's tons of players who would be like, that would be a non-starter, I think, a lot of the time. But it works. It transcends those limitations.
There are a lot of people who don't have much rhythm who can find the beat in these games because it's built around that as opposed to being tacked on, for sure.
Yes.
So what's next in yours? What's next in your bag?
So the next thing in my bag is Slay the Spire. When we first did our drafts, I did not place this one so high up, and then I stopped and meditated on what the point of our Gateway Grab Bag is, which is offering a variety of recommendations for people getting into the genre who might be fans of a couple of these games but don't know about the rest. Slay the Spire, maybe if you're just kind of scrolling through and you see it, you're not exactly sure what's happening in the marketing or how it's described as a deck builder. That deck builder, and you've said before, it's had its trend coming and going, up and down in indie game development, and even in kind of like side game development. It's been a trend in game publishing, really. But there's a lot of people who don't seek it out, and there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, what is this? What am I getting into?" And if they've never
I played Hearthstone and I really didn't enjoy it so much. You know, that type of.
Hey, I think we've all been there. Let's be honest.
Yeah, even people who like Hearthstone tend to not like Hearthstone every now and then.
There's a season for all these Blizzard games. Slay the Spire and its deck-based roguelike combination. Slay the Spire is no way a roguelike traditionally. It is totally a roguelite. Completely turn-based, completely based on how many runs you've done in the past, what cards you've unlocked, and your knowledge about those cards, the mobs that you're hitting, the events that you're going to come across. It definitely rewards experience, and it, more than any other roguelike, right up there with Binding of Isaac, was so incredibly addicting when I first started. Mm-hmm. When I did not have every single unlock, when I didn't have every single card, when I didn't beat every single boss, that was the game I was playing until I did that thing. Maybe it's just because I love cards and there's so many trolls on my stream that make fun of me because I love card games, and those sometimes are not the most fun things to watch. I get it. But with these cards, when it's so deliberate and you're able to fashion a strategy while the RNG lines up, oh man, that is the sweet spot. That is dopamine right there.
Slay the Spire has become the roguelike deck builder that every other deck builder is compared to. Yeah. It is the gold standard.
It's so much so that there's other games that are able to get away with acting a little bit like sequels, and I'm enjoying them just for maybe one or two differences, but it's just basically more content for me to experience that the Slay the Spire guys haven't gotten around to with a fifth character or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, if you end up liking Slay the Spire, it opens up a whole nother swath of games that have come out in its wake that you would enjoy.
Right.
For sure.
So what about you, Skip?
All right, third pick for me.
Yeah.
Third pick for me. Third game for me is Streets of Rogue. Which is very unique. I think of all of roguelikes that are out there, this one, believe it or not, stands pretty much on its own. It's got sort of the kind of top-down, level-based. I don't really know how to describe it too well, because you enter a level, you have some objectives you have to do, the order you take care of them, but specifically how you choose to take care of those objectives is up to you.
Man, when you start, you feel like you're in the deep end, don't you, Skip?
You have no idea. It just says, the first character, it says, destroy some generators, free this person, and take the gorilla to the exit of the room. And you're like, what are you talking about? But, how you choose to free the gorilla? Well, you could blow up the wall of the jail cell the gorilla's in, but you might accidentally blow up the gorilla at the same time. Or you could go kill the scientists, or steal from the scientists and open the cell, which would make the scientists mad. But that's up to you. How you decide to execute the missions. Yep. You can be like Snake and you can be stealthy like Metal Gear, or you can be just bomb and shoot everyone and everything in your path.
Rambo.
You can do whichever method you like.
Love it.
And then there's other characters like first off, I love this. There's the comedian. The way you unlock the comedian is you have to kill a character with a banana peel. Now, you throw a banana peel on the ground, someone slips on it, they lose like 2 HP. So you have to really specifically get someone's HP really low, get them chasing you, and drop a banana peel and hope that was not enough HP left that they die.
This is the wonkiness that we're dealing with.
It's zany. And the fact, the way that you win is you have to put on the mayor's hat. Now, how you get the mayor's hat, maybe the residents have liked you enough because you've done enough good things during your run that they vote for you at the end of the game. Or it could be you kill the mayor and steal his hat and put it on and you're the mayor.
See, I didn't even know this. I've never won. This game has been elusive.
It's one of those that it's so zany you don't have to have beaten the game to enjoy playing it.
Sure.
And that's one thing I really like about it, is you can play it for a few levels, enjoy how crazy it is, and it doesn't matter that you died because you really enjoy playing it. And oftentimes the best way to get someone to play a game is to play it with them. Am I right or am I wrong about that?
No, you're right.
This game not only has co-op, has online co-op. And online co-op in Streets of Rogue is some of the most fun gaming you can do in a roguelike.
We don't have a lot of those games here. We really don't.
We don't have very many. And I definitely say this is a really, really fun online co-op. Everyone has their own objectives. There's some shared objectives, but all that chaos times multiple people doing their own things, it just adds to the fun of this game.
Very fun game. I remember you said it before. You combined a few games to describe it to someone else. And you threw in GTA?
Yes.
Just in terms of I wouldn't say open world, but in terms of the morality spectrum and the other metrics for reputations among gangs. And
you can choose to bribe your way to get the safe key. You could kill the guy to get the safe key, or you could send someone in to steal the safe key. all up to you from a morality perspective.
It depends on how the RNG pops up, just like most of these great games.
And you really, really feel it in Streets of Rogue, but usually in a good way. Usually the RNG, even when it's really bad, it makes you laugh. And that's what's great.
And it feels like even at their worst parts, with almost all of these games, there's an air of optimism even at the lowest point. A couple of these games, the one I already mentioned with Slay the Spire, you have that reset ability. So when things get really bad, you might just be able to redo things, and then it's almost like a little mini run each encounter with in and of itself. Streets of Rogue has that a little bit with the floors. And I kind of really love multiple rooms and courtyards and different things that they kind of build around the levels based around floors. You know, I think Hades does that. Streets of Rogue does that. And my number 3, Enter the Gungeon, does that. Enter the Gungeon brought a little bit more sophisticated music and artwork to the genre, but really it's fun level and the commitment to theme and excellent role play. Excellent gameplay. The commitment to be the best at the...
Did we just learn your preferred roleplay is to dress everyone up as Bulletkin, run around your house? Are we learning something about Scott's home here?
Look, some people dress up on Halloween. Some people dress up every other day but Halloween. You know? So...
Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Enter the Gungeon is a fantastic action game in and of itself. Forget roguelike. Forget all of the fun things that we love that bind this to the other games here. My sons, when they see it being played on the screen, they just want to watch YouTubes of people playing much better than me so they can not just see the same level going over and over. It is a very fun, action-packed bullet hell. And Binding of Isaac, I would say, yes, is a bullet hell most of the time. But Enter the Gungeon, with its mastery of the additional dash mechanic, the constant new content that does feel just enough different from just feels different enough. It just feels different enough from BOI that it's its own brand, it's its own thing. There's plenty of people who, for a lot of legitimate reasons, don't love BOI. Don't love Binding of Isaac, whether it's the theme, the ridiculous
Usually it's
artwork.
the theme. It's a little dark, yeah.
And it's a shame that I kind of have to do it because I really do love action roguelikes, and Binding of Isaac I think is the granddaddy of them all. But if it's not your taste, you're not going to go back to it. You're not going to give it any more chances, and I kind of don't blame you for what it's trying to do. Luckily, there's Enter the Gungeon, and it covers for all of the various reasons why Binding of Isaac may not be a suitable game for you if you like roguelikes through Hades or something like that and you're looking for the next best action, standard, typical action roguelike. I would say if Binding of Isaac isn't going to be the thing, if you've got younger kids that really loves Hades or whatever, Enter the Gungeon really is going to be probably the most palatable for that gateway gift bag item. And it's got serious legs. People play it forever. People love it. There's a ton of people playing it all the time. The content is great. There's so many bosses. There's such great post-game. Lots of replayability. Constantly rewarding you for doing better. If you get bored with levels, they make it easier for you to skip stuff. A ton of great fun lore. A great look. One of the best looks and art in these grab bags. Highly recommend Enter the Gungeon, as do most roguelike fanboys.
So for me, let's see, we're up to pick number 4.
For you, it's 4.
Pick number 4. For me, it's got to be Dead Cells. For me, for pick number 4.
I'm kind of surprised that it's down here at 4.
I
thought
again,
Dead Cells might be like 2.
I was structured this around what's a great way to introduce someone to the genre. And Dead Cells, while I believe a really amazing roguelite, from an introductory standpoint, I was trying to go at what's most accessible to people kind of from top down. And hence why you had Necrodancer from that combination of Zelda and rhythm and all that stuff. And you had Streets of Rogue from the multiplayer, just it's a zany game. So Dead Cells still is in that line. But the reason why it's right here specifically is because it's technically a roguelike or a roguelike or roguelite and a Metroidvania, which is actually the only game that I know of that successfully combines those two genres. I know if you're familiar with, like if you're a fan of Hollow Knight, if you're a fan of
Owlboy,
Iconoclast, or Cave Story, or any of the Metroidvanias that are out there, you should really give Dead Cells a try. On its own as well, it's of its own game. It has possibly the most fluid combat mechanic of any game I play, specifically if you're thinking just platformers as well. The combat mechanic, all the different weapons that are available, all of the synergies between the different weapons that you might be picking up and afflictions that you can give to enemies when you're attacking them, it all works so very well. You can get such a great build while only really swapping out your weapons and your skills and powers that you are able to pick up along the way. It becomes a very fluid and fun game that, yes, can get a little bit grindy unlocking everything, but I mean, that's no different from most of these games. You can put tons and tons and tons and tons of time into it. This won Game of the Year in 2018 at the Game Awards for a reason. It was Action Game of the Year, not full game, it was Action Game of the Year, because it is a really, really good action game. And I'd say, yeah, for that reason alone, it's helped already to introduce many people to the roguelike genre, and I think would continue to do so. Not a bad game for people who like that action platformer combination. 100% recommended there.
I mean, it's the first platform in our grab bag.
Yeah, you're right. We actually
shocking.
It is, because there are a few. There's not a ton, because again, if you're going to a platform, you're abandoning the top-down turn-based, well, top-down at least, the grid-based.
The grid for sure.
Whereas you think even like, let's see, technically Hades is a modification of the grid-based. Streets of Rogue is very much in that grid, is a grid. Necrodancer, of course, is a grid. Binding of Isaac is a pseudo grid. Enter the Gungeon, also a pseudo grid.
Slay the Spire, not a grid.
Not a grid.
Spire, not a grid.
They definitely abandoned the grid there.
Yeah.
When you go to a platformer, you're taking you're moving a step further away from the formula, and so you have to make sure the other elements that you have still adhere as closely as possible to it. I mean, especially if you think about the fact that, hey, it's doing platformer, and it's also doing a Metroidvania, which by definition is against the whole non-modal definition.
Yeah.
But everything else that they did around the permadeath, the procedural level generation, the not knowing exactly where the exit's going to be and having to do the exploration, finding out what's in chests, opening up a cursed chest, not knowing what's going to be inside. They did all of that so well that it definitely compensates for where they deviated from the formula.
The aspect that you listed that I don't necessarily think of with that game, that I appreciated the most when I played it, was the exploration. The tense, gothic attitude of that game as you tried to kind of figure out what you were and what you were doing and the choices that were presented to you. There is such a huge distance between that fog of war and then the huge amount of meta that people, when they watch your videos and they come onto the Discord and ask you kind of random questions about combinations of attacks and shields and ability, there is so much there. I appreciate that level of commitment by devs and content level.
And they continue to work on it as well. Talk about a game that's not stale. They're actually releasing another. This is now 2 years after the full release.
Wow.
They're about to drop another DLC, which is going to add a few new areas in the game, more mobs. Like they're just like Binding of Isaac. They are continuing to add more content to the game because they've got such a huge fan base. So this game is not going away and will continue to be enjoyed, frankly, wherever you like to enjoy it, including mobile, which, believe it or not, huge mobile fan base. You wouldn't think it, but a huge mobile fan base for this game.
I mean, there's plenty of people I know who they have their two favorite games, roguelike games, BOI and Dead Cells. That scratches their itch. That's all they need. Two totally valid, great, hardcore roguelikes.
So what's next? What's next for you? So what's your fourth pick? Where are you going next?
The next one for me is the first game of all of these roguelikes that I've ever played. And that is the 2012 offering, FTL.
Going back towards the very beginning, one of the granddaddies of them all, actually.
Yeah.
You got a couple of the pillars of the community in your grab bag already.
I'll thank you. I'll take that compliment. Yes, I do. I know how to pick them. FTL is not a turn-based game unless you want it to be. Just the way I like it. We mentioned Fallout already and some of the pedigree of the games we play. Fallout 3 in New Vegas for sure. Not a turn-based game. Unless you're neurotic, which I am. Thank you very much. FTL scratches so many itches. Okay, I love sci-fi. I love Star Wars and Star Trek. This captures having a crew and going on an adventure like a dungeon run with all the events, all the RNG, all the possibility of maybe getting someone a little bit too tough for you. Then you can handle this run, then the next. Getting super duper lucky and finding amazing gear. Getting super, super unlucky and getting hit with that asteroid belt. Whatever the case may be, there is RNG aplenty in this. Right from the get-go.
This game, if you want a game to just be a dice rolling simulator, this is as close as you're gonna get. But it's dice rolling simulator in space, and it's addictive. So
I think this is the game that kind of will be the easiest litmus test on whether or not you can be a roguelike fan. You know, like if you can handle getting through a few runs of FTL so that you've unlocked a few more spaceships and then you're playing around with them and you're like, okay, I get it. If you can do that, then there's a whole other group of many multi-categories, subcategories of roguelikes that you're with that kind of tenacity, because it does start off very difficult if you're new to games or roguelikes or space sims or having to be neurotic with the logistics of pausing all the time. And
you pause in this game. You can watch people playing the fact that people who play without pause
that's
put in their stream title no pause.
Yeah, that's playing on ultra hard.
Yeah,
ultra hard.
Yeah. This is space
I've never played
chess.
no pause. Yeah, I've never played no pause.
This is space chess with dice rolling. Let's be honest.
Right. No, so true. There's so many great things about this game. I highly recommend it as a grandpappy of the genre. Sometimes space strategy games or space simulator games, I don't need to look around 360 and be able to pilot my craft so that I can see all sides of a planet or do the No Man's Sky. I love X-Wing Squadrons and all this true space simulator games where you are, like a spacecraft, an actual spacecraft simulator. This scratches that itch in pixel art, 2D, top-down simplicity and elegance. You don't need all that fluff. Simple ain't easy, Simple ain't something that doesn't take a lot of work and thought and expertise and refining. This is a top-tier, elegant game, and one of the treasures of our genre. Are we to your number 5? Is that what's happening?
We are to my last pick of the roguelike bag.
Okay.
And I had to think about this one again. I try to focus on, with my picks, what would I pick when I'm wanting to get someone into the genre? And so I don't think you're going to see this one coming if you're thinking of the games I'm going to pick. But I went with Void Bastards.
Interesting. I like that game. I borderline love that game. We haven't had a first-person shooter here.
It's true. Again, something that goes a little bit on the fringe.
Yeah.
But the reason why I really like it in this bag is because it's got a couple elements. It's got this comic book vibe. It's a first-person shooter, and it's a little bit of the kind of spooky, on the edge of not a horror game, but a little almost jump scary, and it makes you feel creepy at times. There's a whole group of people that's the type of game they love to play, and they tend to go towards either first-person shooter or first-person perspective games, and this definitely fills that void in the roguelike genre.
I love this cell shade art.
It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Sometimes that's not the easiest thing to design, and they nail it.
It can look really bad at times, but this is done really, really well. And something else I really appreciate about Void Bastards is because it was one of the first games in the genre, not the first, one of the first games to introduce a real cohesive story around what's happening as your character dies. Now, with Hades, we've seen that more. We've seen other games adopt this as well, but Void Bastards was one of the first to really put full thought into not just you die and then now your character starts over, or as like Rogue Legacy did, you die and your child that you left behind comes up and is exactly like you in every way. What Void Bastards did is it said, well, you're starting off in a prison ship where they're decanting you from a dehydrated state effectively, and that when you die, well, they'll just decant the next prisoner and send them to find the supplies to repair the prison ship. Well, that's really creative, and I really kind of enjoy the humor in that because they go all in on the fact that they don't care about you, the character. You are a means to an end of fixing this ship.
Yeah. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of humor in most of these games we're talking about throughout this because of the heaviness of permadeath in our genre. They've got to do something that takes the sting out of, no, you didn't just waste your 20 minutes, your hour, your 3 hours. You didn't just waste that time. It's gonna be rewarded. That loot you hoarded still exists out there, and you could go get it. Or
and this game does it really, really well because you don't feel like, especially for someone new, you don't feel like you've wasted it because there are some. There's one way that a lot of games try to do it, and I don't appreciate this variety, which is where, okay, when you die, there's some version of loot that sticks around and makes your next character stronger, which just has almost, it feels tacked on, but it's a way to try and get people to not feel like a sense of loss. Void Bastards thought through and they said, well, what would be happening? Well, you as a character would be collecting items and crafting things to try and repair this ship as you go to each from ship to ship to ship through the system. Well, if you die, your little ship has to go all the way back to the prisoner ship, pick up a new decanted character, but all the stuff you've been working on, well, that would obviously still already be there. All the things that you've been unlocking and crafting, to try and fix the ship or things along the way, those are naturally built into, again, a good explanation of the progression so that it's not lost, but it also doesn't feel completely superficial at the same time. And I think that's part of what makes this game super accessible. And just the fact that I love the game this much, considering I absolutely abhor anything even remotely close to the spooky or horror genre, speaks to how well this game is done. If I liked the genre any better, I would have played a lot more of it, but I reached a point where it was just a little too much for me. I couldn't do it anymore.
Do you mind if I just make an observation? I think it feels like the 8 games before this point, the 4 on both of our sides, those are games that have definitely reached the level of mainstream success for an indie game roguelike experiment.
Sure.
That it has then also been able to fully flesh out the content for the supporters, the fans who play it, so that they're able to get multiple runs, not get sick of level design, some just additional content that really scratches the itch. And as much as I do borderline love Void Bastards, sometimes that sameness of some of those ships does creep in a little bit, as does with my pick. And I hate to be starting with a negative, but just being honest here.
Yeah.
My pick in number 5, my first-person shooter that is been around a long time, but not a lot of people know about it, and that is Heavy Bullets. Okay, it came out in 2014. This is a action roguelike first-person shooter. Super zany with crazy colors. Not for everybody, I get it. But the gimmick is you aren't playing a run of Doom. You aren't playing a run of Enter the Gungeon, where your starter gun is super, super weak but has unlimited bullets. No, no, no. Your starter gun is one of the best guns that you're ever going to get, but you have 2 bullets. And when you shoot one of those bullets, it's a heavy bullet, and you got to run get it, either from the destroyed corpse of the robot you just blew up or from the side of the wall that fell off. So every single shot is absolutely critical. So talk about learning your lesson, not just when you die each time in a normal roguelike run, but every time you miss your shot and where you hit the mobs, not just the pattern of where the mobs go. It is fast, it is ruthless, it is reckless, it is crazy. You die unexpectedly from weird ways all the time. And kind of like, it is a little bit more of the more, I would say, advanced roguelike players for people who enjoy these other ones above it, these 8 above us. And if you like first-person shooters, this is just one maybe I want to throw out there for people who think they've tried them all. Because this is, for me, a very charming game that's unlike any other game I've played for quite a few years of being a fan of this genre. So I'm not big into jump scares and twitchy games, right? Mm-hmm. And this definitely has it. And it's one of my favorite of it. It's very refreshing. There's not another game like it. The economy of resource management for these runs and being able to kind of give up on a run, so you give all of your resources to the next run because you know this run is a loss. That plays heavy in this roguelike than any other. The idea of, okay, well, this is done. I've got a few dollars to my name that I've earned from killing some mobs, but I'm so low in health, I know I'm not going to beat this boss, so I'll give all this stuff to my next run. There really hasn't been anything that has done that this well, and this game's been out for a long while. As well as just some very, very, very clever level design, beautiful colors, combination palettes. I know that's very subjective, but I find the game very refreshing, very, very relaxing once you get used to the tension of some of these mobs jumping out of nowhere.
Once you figure out that I'm out of shots, I got to go pick those bullets up again. Very refreshing.
Yeah, very refreshing and relaxing. Once like most of these games, the arc is, I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm just going to go forward and I'll try this magical thing that's in front of me, and that thing killed me. Okay, I know that for the next round. Eventually you do that enough so that you know your world. And once you do know that world, it becomes kind of subconscious as you go through your runs. And when you do that with this game, it's very zen-like and very relaxing, while the first run was nothing but. The first run was incredibly tense.
I feel like that's a theme for almost any roguelike where...
Or good one.
That's a good one. Not any of them, but a good one where at first you don't know what's going on. You're enjoying it. You're getting into it for some reason or another. And it has the moments of stress, but it also has the moments when you start to figure stuff out where you're able to just sit back, relax, and enjoy it. That's definitely a hallmark of any good roguelike. And certainly as I look back on my list, Hades, Necrodancer, Cadence of Hyrule, Streets of Rogue, Dead Cells, Void Bastards, all of them at some point you have that, okay, I know what I'm doing here, at least for the next couple minutes. I can kind of relax through it.
Yeah, I would say my list, Binding of Isaac, Slay the Spire, Enter the Gungeon, FTL, Heavy Bullets, pretty steep learning curve. And mastery is very difficult. I would say more difficult than the average game, right? I think that's what kind of roguelikes kind of challenge you is this is something that as you play will keep pushing back the goalpost of when you think you're done with it.
The game will not reward you just because you put in the time. You have to actually get better at it in order to progress, which we've talked about that before, and I definitely think that is the hallmark of a good note. So we've each picked 5 games. That's 10 total. We'll certainly in the description of either the podcast or the video.
That's a pretty full bag.
Well, it's a pretty full bag, full of roguelikes and full of roguelites. Well, let's throw a bonus game in, one each.
What? Oh,
a bonus game. I want, because certainly we have some variety. certainly you and I are both known for our love of roguelikes, but not exclusively so. So
That's right.
if you could, I want us to each one game that you'd say, if you have to throw, not a, don't go say, oh, go buy Super Mario Brothers, or don't go buy Cyberpunk, let's think outside the box. If you're having to buy maybe a game for someone that you'd recommend that they may not have heard of, what game would that necessarily be?
And I gotta admit, I can't help but think about the people who would listen to a podcast like this and have that be something that affects my recommendation here.
Fair.
Because I kind of want someone who's at least tangentially interested in roguelikes, and while this game is clearly not, or this game in our category here, the sixth game in our list, grab bag item 11 and 12, that it, while not a roguelike, would still foster appreciation from fans of roguelikes.
Thinking about the game that I've got for my pick here, it definitely fits that qualification as well. Certainly indie game, certainly art, aesthetic, feel, and especially I was thinking about, again, how would I get someone into this type of a game? So specifically, I'll let the cat out of the bag. I picked The Messenger.
Okay.
Fantastic game. I love The Messenger for this very reason, because it starts off and plays from the very beginning as a Ninja Gaiden game. And yes, it's spoilers, but okay, it's spoilers that gave itself away in the trailer of the game. It quickly becomes more than that. It quickly becomes a Metroidvania game. Now, I've talked about Dead Cells with Metroidvanias. Believe it or not, Dead Cells was sort of the first Metroidvania-ish game I ever really played. I was never really into the genre.
Interesting. Huh.
I mean, I had played some Metroid, I'd played Castlevania, but never really got into them too much.
No Ori and the Blind Forest? Or...
Not before Dead Cells.
Okay.
And not really before The Messenger either. Because here's what happened. I was recommended to play The Messenger. I picked it up, and I fell absolutely in love with the game because it didn't instantly have that I don't know where I'm going mechanic, which always was a part of Metroidvanias that I really didn't like. I didn't like feeling lost. That's why whenever I would pick one up, I'd go with Metroid. I'd reach a point where I'm like, well, I don't know what door I'm supposed to go through next, and I would give it up. But because Ninja Gaiden, or I should say, but because The Messenger starts off with that more Ninja Gaiden feel, very linear, but it draws you in with the music and the art and the humor of the game and the story, by the time you get to that Metroidvania piece, you're already in. And you start to then unlock everything else, but you're already familiar with the mechanics. You've already seen the things that you need to look for, so it's a nice soft opening. And I have to say, since then, I have just exploded on wanting to play the genre. I've looked up like top 20 Metroidvanias you need to play, and I purchased a lot of them, tried them out. Some of them are terrible, some of them I've loved. This has been a gateway game for me for getting to that genre, especially for me coming from roguelikes.
I mean, was it members of the roguelike community that said, hey, I know this isn't really a roguelike, but you got to try it because it does.
What it was, it was actually Cryfor, who actually was speed running The Messenger. So I hopped into his stream and I'm like, well, what's this game? And he goes, you have to play it. He knows me really well. He goes, you have to play it. I'm like, well, if it's that strong of a recommendation from Cryfor, I'm going to give it a try. And he opened up a whole new world for me. I won't sing the song, but
I will. But
I don't want to be DMCA'd here. Don't do it. Don't do it.
No, I won't do it. And the look is great. Very refreshing. A great old school pixel art.
And half the game in 8-bit, half the game in 16-bit, half the game music in 8-bit, half the game music in 16-bit. Literally, I could go on for an entire hour episode on this game. That's how much I love it. I have artwork up on my wall. So,
wow.
Yeah. So what's in your non-roguelike bag? What's your pick?
Well, I think similarly, because with The Messenger, you still have mob pattern. You don't necessarily have runs. You have more of a Metroidvania, Mario Brother-y experience that you then learn from those individual challenges, right? And not as much procedurally RNG. The game I'm choosing feels like there is runs to it, multiple endings, and strategy for getting to those endings. It's a game that is pure strategy and pure indie, and this is the game that there was a long stretch there where I stopped playing video games, except for maybe occasionally Civ or my old PlayStation 2 or 3, but I didn't play a lot of PC gaming at all until my brother said, hey man, why don't you try Papers, Please? Papers, Please, epitome of indie game, made by
Absolutely.
one man, Pope, and Papers, Please is a check stop simulator where you are the person who is a customs officer, either allowing or rejecting people and their paperwork into Estroka. Glory to Estroka is what you're going for here. And it is just drips with Soviet, quote-unquote, charm. Right from the get-go, with a Star Wars-like introduction to the universe. In 8-bit. Brash and bold. With this cold language and setting. And all of a sudden, you're evaluating people as they walk up. And there are story elements. There is major choose-your-own-adventure elements that make it a not roguelike, because you can kind of follow along with exactly what you did before, or make very clear breaks to experience other content and other parts of the story. But these are runs. You can have success or failure and the different fractions. If you want to kind of be a hard-nosed government enforcer, or you want to be a member of the resistance, there's different experiences there, and they have different ways of getting to that ending, and it's very rewarding when you do. And there's a lot of replay value as well. There's some small elements, but it's clearly not a roguelike. It's clearly a simulator / adventure game.
It is a beautifully done indie game, start to finish, everything from music to art to that intrigue where you're not sure if you should feel bad doing your job, but you know you have to do your job to feed your family. And you feel the weight of every single time you hit pass or deny.
Right. And I gotta admit, it was a little bit more charming when fascism was a little bit more foreign. I hate to be so hardcore about it, Skip.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it was a little bit more charming when it seemed so weird to be so anti-immigrant.
Well, I mean, you say that, but you're talking to the guy who downloaded Plague Inc. in April, so
Okay,
I don't
right.
know. I don't know.
Yeah, I waited till May. Fair enough. But there's games that have spawned out of this, not just by Pope, but by other people who Observer is one. There's a few other clones, but nothing quite compares to this amazing, maybe my favorite individual indie experience. Definitely best title by one individual person. And Pope has gone on to make, Obra Dinn, and just is I'm following his career like crazy. It is a bolt of lightning of ingenuity. This was the game. Like I said, I was hardly playing any PC games at all. I was into my comics, and I was a film nerd, and this is what made me say, all right, I got to figure out other indie games that are being experimental like this, and that's what led me here. So it's not even a roguelike, but it led me down this dark path of finding systems.
Yeah, it was for you a gateway game back into games. So
Yes.
for maybe that's exactly what someone needs is, hey, you don't play much, maybe give this Papers, Please a try.
Yeah,
But yeah, absolutely.
So much fun.
So that we got a good gift bag.
It's a overflowing.
Overflowing, a couple extra pieces on there. I'm happy with this list we pulled. I think if you had
We'll have this list listed somewhere, right? For people to complain and say, why isn't X, Y, or Z on the list?
we'll post it certainly
We
in
need
the
that.
Rogue HQ Discord. We'll put it in the RYSK channel.
Okay.
It'll be in the comments. We'll post it on Twitter as well after the episode airs. So you'll be able to find it.
If we haven't made multiple people upset, then we haven't done a very good job.
Absolutely. I know we left something out, but hey, this was, again, these picks were mine and Scott's,
Right.
and they're what we say, hey, if you're going to buy something for someone, again, for a purpose, each of these had a purpose. Are they the best out there?
Yes, of
no.
course they are. That's why. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just in general, are they the best roguelike games out there? Well, no, we weren't making that. we weren't making that as a criteria.
Right. And quite frankly, let's be honest. Someone can make a good case that a game like, Into the Breach or Rogue Legacy might deserve to have a place somewhere on here as a great gateway game that's unlike the others or what have you. But we would point to another game in this list that we would say, make sure you like this game, and then you could go on to another game, because people only have so many dollars these days, and we want to get them to the successful game experience as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely. So hopefully we've done that for you. Hopefully this helps you maybe figure out a game to give to someone else, or maybe buy all 12 of these games for yourself if you got some extra Christmas cash running around. But this is going to be the last episode before Christmas, but we will be coming back to you on Christmas Day with some Gunfire Reborn co-op back to our regularly scheduled program. I'm excited for that episode.
I think maybe you and I will play a couple games before then. What do you think about that, Skip?
Well, we've done it before. Maybe we could do it again for sure. We'll find some time. Time. So anyways, thanks everyone for being here. Again, I'm Skip.
I'm Scott.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.